nonstop, so I'm a little, if my words don't come to me, you guys bear with me. Okay, so just to be clear, I am a chiropractor. A lot of people come in thinking I might be an endocrinologist or a medical doctor, but I am a chiropractic physician. And one of the most common questions I get is, why is a chiropractor talking about, thyroid or blood sugar or hormones or, whatever chronic condition I'm talking about? So I always tell my story because that kind of lets you guys understand how I ended up doing what I do. When I was 19, I was playing football in college. Now that sounds really cool, but I was playing football with a friend at the college. I wasn't on the football team, wasn't that athletic. But I was playing football in college, and I bent down to catch the ball, threw my back out. So came home, mom sent me to a chiropractor, got it all fixed up, and did really, really well with it. At that time, I had met somebody and started dating this person, and she was 18 years old when she had her first back surgery. Okay, so I watched her go through that, and I was studying sports science and exercise physiology at the time. So when she came out of back surgery, I was trying to teach her the exercises and what to do and everything. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. She just, took the medication, just kept going that route. By the time she was 21, she had her second back surgery. Came out of that surgery, she had had a fusion. She had developed left leg paralysis, couldn't lift her foot, just all kinds of different issues with that. Kept going, we split up, didn't talk to her again for a long time. I went and when I was 24 years old, I was sitting on a couch and I was playing tug of war with a chihuahua, a little chihuahua, and blew a disc in my back. So I ended up having surgery at 24. Now, it wasn't that chihuahua that blew the disc, it was me, playing sports and martial arts and all the things that I did do. So I beat myself up, and that chihuahua was the final straw. So I had back surgery when I was 24 years old. I was determined not to go down the path that I had already seen. So did everything I was supposed to do, became an avid chiropractic patient. So that's kind of what put me into chiropractic. To finish up on the story of the young lady that I was dating, by the time she was 27, she had had 4 back surgeries. She was scheduled for her 5th one, and I got a call that she was in the hospital with liver failure, and she passed away at 27. So I watched that spiral. So I went to chiropractic school. Went to chiropractic school, started doing what chiropractors do, started learning how to heal the body. Now, chiropractors are trained to heal the whole body. This is not a chiropractic seminar, but basically the theory behind chiropractic is if you can clear the spine of any interference with the brain controlling everything that happens in the body, if the signal can get from the body to the brain can heal itself and continue on. So when we were in chiropractic school, I learned all these stories of miraculous healings and everything. I got into practice and I was ready to go. Started seeing patients, and we did have miraculous healings. I had patients that would come in that would have thyroid issues. I would adjust their neck, their thyroid would clear up, and they'd start losing weight, and it was great. But it didn't happen a lot. It was like the exception to the rule. So I started studying, I'm like, why is it that the healings aren't happening the way that they described it to us in chiropractic school? The old-time chiropractors were telling us all these phenomenal stories. So as I started researching, I realized that what had changed was back when these guys were practicing was before we had changed our dietary habits. We had stopped eating the processed foods that we eat now. They were still eating whole foods, farm foods, things like that. So the dietary changes happened, and we're actually one of the most overweight, malnourished countries in the world because we eat so much calorically empty, or nutritionally empty, calorically rich food. So the body's just not designed to do that. We're not evolved to process those foods. So that was kind of the beginning. So I became fascinated with nutrition, but I didn't practice it. I just learned about it. About 5 years ago, my daughter started putting on a little bit of weight. And I got 4 kids. My kids are all pretty thin, very healthy. She's very healthy. She started putting on some weight, so we were trying to figure out why, so I ran labs on her. When I ran the labs, she came back with Hashimoto's. Is anybody familiar with that? Okay, you know what that is? So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune hypothyroid condition. It's where the body makes antibodies against the thyroid gland. So when I got this diagnosis, or when I got these labs back and realized that's what she had going on, I kind of freaked out a little bit. I didn't know what to do because I studied a little nutrition, but I didn't know what to do. So I was determined not to put her on medication, so I started studying functional medicine. And functional medicine is where you take labs, you apply a nutritional protocol through food changes, dietary modification, supplementation. You apply that protocol, and then you redo your labs to make sure that everything's going the way it should. Okay, that's the general premise behind functional medicine. So I started studying functional medicine. She has done phenomenally well. I have to give her a ton of credit. She resisted me tooth and nail in the beginning, kind of the point of almost giving up, but she has come around. She's taking total control of her health. She's doing extremely, extremely well. So she's like what, 5'6", 5'7", weighs like 110 pounds, something like that. And she's doing really well. So maybe 114, I don't know. But I got some thin people in the family. But anyway, so that was how I got into functional medicine and functional nutrition. Well, when I was seeing patients chiropractically in the office, I kept noticing almost everybody was on Synthroid or levothyroxine or Armour, or metformin or some kind of a metabolic medication. So I started treating patients in the office. Well, the difference between treating an 11-year-old, which is how she was when we started this, and treating somebody in their 40s and 50s is there's been a 30-year span of tissue destruction that's happened. And as these metabolic issues progress, and we're going to start seeing this tonight, as these metabolic issues progress, we start losing other functions. One of the primary ones that we lose is brain function. So I had a lot of thyroid patients, a lot of diabetic patients that were losing brain and neurological function. Couldn't figure out how to handle that just with chiropractic and nutrition. So I started studying functional neurology. And so that's where we are today, is I do chiropractic, functional medicine, and functional neurology. It's a fascinating approach, and I absolutely love every minute of it. So that's how I've gotten to where I am and what I do, and that's how I'm up here talking about blood sugar, because blood sugar is one of the most common malfunctions of anybody that I see in this office. Every single person that comes in this office that has any kind of a chronic condition and any kind of chronic inflammation usually has a blood sugar metabolism issue. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into. So I've been a chiropractor for 10 years, bachelor's degree in sports science, functional medicine, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and I'm a certified postural exercise professional because that's what we do as chiropractors, so we have to do all that. Okay, so you guys have that little half slip of paper on your clipboard. If y'all fill that out for me, what I'm going to do is when we get done, if y'all drop that up front, I'm going to throw a You're okay, I've got y'all's address and everything, so you're fine. But I'm going to send you guys a DVD. It's a thyroid-based DVD, but it goes into a lot of what we're going to talk about. It goes into it in a lot more detail. So I'll send that out to you guys, and if you leave that slip up front. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to talk about blood sugar, but we're also going to talk about how the blood sugar affects the rest of the body. So one of the things that we're going to go through is learning what your web of physiological dysfunction is. Okay, that's where these questionnaires are going to come in. All right. So one of the first things that you have to do when we're looking at a situation like this, especially with blood sugar handling, is you've got to get away from labels. Okay, I don't know if you've been diagnosed with hypoglycemia, or you've been diagnosed with diabetes or metabolic syndrome or PCOS or whatever your diagnosis is. We need to get away from the label. It's good to know that. It's good to know the malfunction, but you can't treat just based on the label. Because if you come in with me, like let's say you came in and you had diabetes, and you came in with diabetes, if I did a full body analysis on both of you guys, you have completely different systems of non-aware. Your treatment protocol would be completely different. I can't just put you on that form and go. Okay.
Right. That's
so
good.
Yeah, so that's that.
That's what normal doctors like this.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And you don't take it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It makes me feel terrible.
I'm up to pills up to here.
Yeah, because once you take one, then you have to take another one for that side effect and so on and so forth. So,
Bag full.
Yeah. And that's what happens. Most of the patients that we end up seeing have a bag full of medication and a bag full of supplements. Usually
Every
the
time you
supplement
go,
bag
it's a
is.
different thing that they want to prescribe.
Yep, exactly.
Whatever's new and different. and
Exactly.
they
Whatever
make
the
some money
rep
off
has
of.
come in, whatever the rep came in,
That's
told her
my
about.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we got to get away from those labels. We have to figure out where the malfunction is. There's a saying, and I can never remember it, but it's basically you don't treat the disease that the person has, you treat the person that has the disease, because there's so many malfunctions that lead to a disease process. Reinvent your life. Our goal is to give you knowledge so that you know how to at least move forward from here. Also, when we have patients that work with us, we want to reinvent how they live. We want to get that life force back. And I love when people walk in and they're down and they're just, have no color, but by the time we're done with them, they're like vivacious, and it's just, I love seeing that happen. So we really want to help people reinvent their lives. And the other thing is we want to give people an exit strategy. Now, in structural issues, chiropractic, if you've got like a severe arthritis situation or something, you might have to get adjusted, for a regular period of time. Metabolically, once you fix these things, you shouldn't spend your time in the doctor's office. Okay, and it drives me crazy when I take a patient up front, especially an elderly patient, we go to schedule their appointments, and they're up front, they're trying to go through, and they're like, well, I can't come on this day because I have this doctor's appointment, and so the goal is your body is meant to be self-sufficient. Even from here in this office, I don't want you guys coming in here forever. So the goal is to treat you what you need to do, how to do it, get you healed up enough, and let you go out and do that in the world. And that's what our intention is. Okay, so I love this quote. The elevator to incredible health is closed. We are always looking for that fast fix, okay? And I swear, I don't know where he gets them, but Dr. Oz has found all of them. every time I go into the grocery store, there's a new cure for something, and so, but the key is that there is no such thing as that fast fix. You know, if you lose 30 pounds in 30 days, it's because you're malnourished, you're urinating out all the fluids, and you're dehydrating yourself. So to get that long-term effect, there are things that you have to do. And what you got to do is you got to take congruent behavior. It's small steps that are done consistently day after day. And that's how success in anything is built. It doesn't matter if it's a business, it doesn't matter if it's in building your body, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship. It's step by step every day. That's how you build success. And it's got to be, you got to realize that the actions that you do today, even if you're not getting a result today that you're looking for, you know that you're building on that foundation so that you're going to change the future outcome. Okay? And then knowledge and power, say knowledge equals power. Well, knowledge is potential power. You take all the knowledge in the world, if you don't do anything with it, it's pretty much useless. But the key is, especially in health, is it's got to be the right knowledge for the right person, okay? An example of this is I had a gentleman that was sitting, luckily there's nobody there so I can't pick on him, but he was sitting in that chair right over there. And I started doing the whole thing, I was going about halfway through, and he stands up and he goes, okay guys, he goes, I've got this. He goes, I know this is great information, but I'm going to tell you this is how you fix everything. He said, all you have to do is stop eating at 5 o'clock. He said, I've done it, I've been doing it for 6 weeks, I've lost 30 pounds, I sleep great, I feel great, I'm doing wonderfully. So I thanked him for his information, and he sat down and we continued on. I got a little bit more into detail to clarify where that could have been wrong. In that workshop, there were 3 ladies, one sitting there, one there, and one here. And those 3 ladies were all hypoglycemic. So you guys know what that means? What's the worst thing you can do when you're hypoglycemic? Yeah, exactly. So if they stopped eating at 5 o'clock, they would be not sleeping well, there's no way they would heal, they'd be chronically inflamed, they would be doing horribly. So it worked for him, but for them it wouldn't work. So that's the key, you gotta find the right knowledge.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a difference, absolutely. And it's gotta be accurate knowledge too. You have to watch where you're getting your sources from. Cheerios is a health food. That's a lie. Now they may have done a study where people that ate Cheerios may have dropped their cholesterol, but they didn't show their homocysteine, their CRP, all the other markers that went up, the fact that they were having all these other issues because they're the things that come along with that. So you just have to watch these things, okay? Make sure you're getting good information. Okay, all chronic health conditions have some similar metabolic underlying factors. These are all the conditions: diabetes, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, thyroid, fibro, all these different conditions. And most of the time, people don't just have one of these. They usually have multiple diagnoses. But when you get into these, you can almost always find these imbalances, or at least a grouping of these imbalances. Anemias, these things are incredibly damaging to the body. And you guys know that there's more than just iron deficiency anemia, right? There's B vitamin anemia, different things like that. Yeah. So an anemia is basically any metabolic process that keeps you from getting oxygen to the cells. And so those anemias you can't heal. Thyroid dysfunction, we're going to go a little bit into that, destroys all the functions of the body if it's off. Blood sugar is horrible, adrenals, all these different things, we've got to look and see if those things are present, because if they are, they're going to throw the body out of balance. Okay? All right, so how does diabetes happen? Whose concern is high blood sugar? Whose concern is low blood sugar? High? High? Okay. Anybody have concerns for low? Yours is high as well?
It's low if I eat vegetables and stuff. When I did this like 7-day Sacred Heart thing, and I was like 113, 117.
Okay. Okay. So
If I eat right,
it stays low.
Me too.
Okay. Okay. So what we may end up finding as we go through this process, that even though your diagnosis and your lab value says high, functionally you may be what we call an insulin reactor, where you're actually battling high and low. So I'll explain that in just a few minutes. That's what you're doing. So the way that diabetes happens, it's a long process that happens in the body. And basically, you have a cell. On that cell, you have receptors. These are insulin receptors, okay? You eat some food, and put a bunch of glucose in the blood. And then the body will kick out insulin, the insulin comes out, the insulin binds to the glucose, and then that opens up these receptors and the glucose can go in. And that's how you get the glucose into a cell. So if you have a lot of glucose in the blood, and a lot of insulin in the blood, you get a lot of sugar into the cell. Now, sugar and water, they're osmotic. So basically, wherever sugar goes, water goes. So when you have a bunch of this glucose going into the cells constantly, it pulls water in with it. So the cell starts to expand and expand and expand, and eventually it's called lysing. It explodes. Cells are smart; they don't like to die. So what they do is instead of trying to figure out how they're going to handle this stretching, they just say we don't want more glucose coming in. So they downregulate their insulin receptors. Okay, so now.
Resistance.
Yeah, exactly, and that gets you into insulin resistance. Okay, so the medical treatment for it is they give you more insulin because they want to load that up and kind of force it into the cells as much as it can, but your cells don't want that sugar in them. So then you start ending up with these elevated blood sugars and so on. So it's actually a really, really smart process for the body. It's a survival mechanism. The key is letting the body survive without poisoning it with all the extra glucose. So once you do that, the body can start, as long as you have enough viable tissue left, the body can start balancing itself out and getting the blood sugar down and everything. We have patients daily, we run their labs and they'll go from blood sugar to 150, 160 on their fasting blood sugars down to you would get them down to 80s and 90s. And it just happens on a regular basis. So, yes ma'am.
Have you got a way to figure that out without stabbing me?
Yeah. Nope, gotta poke you, gotta get the blood out, unfortunately. Unless you can figure out how to get the blood out without getting through the skin, so. Okay, so that's how diabetes happens. Now, the metabolic process, this is kind of important, so I'm gonna draw this up here real quick. So you have the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that kind of regulates your sleep-wake cycle, your appetite, your metabolism, your hormonal production and everything. If the hypothalamus picks up on the fact that the blood levels are low on T4 and T3, which I'll tell you what those are in a second, it'll send a signal that says, hey, we need more of that. So it sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which releases TSH. You're all familiar with TSH? Anybody ever have a thyroid issue? That's what they always test for thyroid. Okay. So TSH will elevate, and then that stimulates your thyroid gland to make T4 and T3. Okay, now remember, your thyroid gland controls all metabolism in the body. Every single cell in the body has a thyroid receptor. So if you have any kind of thyroid dysfunction, I was going to get into some detail, I won't do it yet. If you have any kind of thyroid dysfunction, it's going to affect all the systems of the body. Okay? So T3 is the active form, and that's about 7% of what the thyroid gland makes. So this T3 goes on and gets into the cell and does what it's supposed to do. This T4 has to be processed, so it's kind of like coffee grounds. T3 is ground up coffee, put it in a filter, stick it in there, you make yourself a nice cup of coffee. T4 is like a coffee bean. You put that in there, run some water over it, and you get some brown water, but it's not going to be very good. So this T4 gets onto thyroid binding globulin, and it goes to the liver, to the gut, to the kidneys, and all the other tissues in the body to convert from T4 to T3. And then that T3 is what's used.
So it filters through all that stuff and comes out back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So any breakdown, like you can have normal thyroid function, this T4 has to get on that thyroid binding globulin. If it can't, then you have a breakdown in metabolic function. What can hinder from getting on that, we'll call this a taxicab, can hinder from getting on that taxi? Elevated blood sugar, hormones. What affects hormones? Elevated blood sugar, adrenal dysfunction. Okay? So it can block that thyroid binding globulin. Let's say it does get on there, it gets out to the kidneys and the liver and everything. If you have a liver issue, a gut issue, a kidney issue, any of those issues, you're not going to process it right, and you're not going to get that conversion. So the blood sugar aspect of things can affect many of these processes here, but on top of that, once that blood sugar starts coming out of balance, then it starts affecting all these other processes through indirect mechanisms as well, then they start going down and they negatively affect blood sugar. So it's just a vicious cycle. Okay, so we're going to use this as we go, so I want to go ahead and put that up there. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Is this new to you guys? Have y'all heard this before?
It was
Kinda.
new before we watched the thing
You've already, okay, good.
the other day.
Good,
Yeah.
good for you. That's awesome. I'm glad you watched that. Okay, so how do you diagnose diabetes? Number one, y'all have heard of polyuria, polyphagia, and polydipsia. Those are the, you want to eat, drink, and pee too much. That's a sensation. Okay, so those are the symptoms of diabetes. My son found out about these symptoms. He is a brilliant kid. He's 13 years old. He's just turned 14. He's skipping 9th grade. He's still going straight into collegiate. He's just a brilliant kid. But I will not let him go to medical school because he thinks he has every ailment that he has ever come across. he was in the STEM academy and they were studying medicine. And he came home and he's like, Dad, did we go through his quizzes? And I'm like, man, this is really cool. But he's like, I read about diabetes and because I'm thirsty all the time, I gotta pee all the time. I'm like, Ben, you're fine. And I did labs on him. I'm like, your labs are fine. And I had to go through and explain it to him. And sometimes I have to reiterate it. So he's like, but I had to pee last night. I'm like, it's normal. You drink water. So anyway, so those are the signs of having an elevated blood sugar. Now, you actually start losing weight in the beginning of the diagnosis of diabetes, and that's because you're not getting the energetic metabolism that you need, and the body kind of starts starving, so you start having that weight loss. So you got to have a random plasma glucose at 200, a level of 200, that's without it being fasting. If you get a fasting blood glucose of 126, they'll diagnose it as diabetes, and then they do the glucose tolerance test. This is the main thing that I look at. These are easy to change. You come in with a glucose of, like I said, 150, we'll get that down fairly quickly. This is the main one that I'm interested in. What this is a red blood cell lives about 90 days in the body. It's very sticky. The sugar is very sticky in the body. So what happens is the red blood cells will bind to that glucose in the blood. And we can measure how much glucose is on the red blood cells so we can see how your body is handling sugar over the last 90 days. So if this number is high, it gives us an acute, immediate view on what's going on metabolically with you. So that's HA1C, yep. So that's the number we want to get down to. We want to see that below a 5. Now, on lab values, they want to see it like at 5.4, some over 5.6. I want to see it at 5 or 5.0 or below. Okay. All right. Metabolic syndrome X or pre-diabetic syndrome, that's where you have a glucose between 100 and 126. This is where most people are sitting that are undiagnosed, with a blood sugar handling issue. All right, is this you? It sounded witty when I wrote it, so. Okay, so this is becoming a major, major issue because of our standard American diet. I'm not gonna bore you with the statistics, but just know that it's very, very common. It's the leading cause of blindness. It's causing a lot of kidney issues, amputations, peripheral neuropathy. Most people have some kind of peripheral neuropathy, which is that loss of sensation on the pins and needles in the feet. Sexual dysfunction. I mean, you're seeing all of these ads on TV with the sexual dysfunction pills. All these things are reversible, and all these things are fixable if you know how to do it and know what to do with it. Okay. The only limitation that you have in healing in the body is what's called the limitation of matter. So if a process has been going on for 60 years, you're going to have a lot more tissue destruction than if it's been going on for 2 or 3 years. So the longer you wait to fix something, the harder it is to fix it because you don't have the tissue there to do it with. So
What about 20?
20? Yeah, well, that's you still got some hope.
That's good.
Yeah, there's always hope. It's just how much improvement you're going to get depends on how much tissue is left. So, all right.
So I never go on insulin. I will not stab myself.
So you're not on insulin?
Pardon?
You're not on insulin?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't plan to be.
Good. Okay, so what can cause the insulin resistance? Skipping meals, going too long in between. You get that low glycemic, and then your body rebounds back, and you get that insulin surge. Eating too many carbohydrates. This is huge in our society. And what's fun about this is everybody's starting to get onto okay, we're having too much sugar, too many carbohydrates. So now they're putting artificial sweeteners and everything, so they can still buy the product. And those things are toxic. They will kill you in a heartbeat. So sucralose is not a health food. Sucralose, Splenda, whatever the names they go by. Then you got aspartame, sulfate K, all those. It's in almost every chewing gum,
What about
every
stevia?
Stevia is okay. It's not the best option. Artificial sweeteners are not great. Stevia is more of a natural brand, so it's okay. But just use it in moderation. Your sugar alcohols, those are better options than your artificial sweeteners like the erythritol and things like that. It's just they have a tolerance factor. They can cause diarrhea and things like that. So you don't want to get too much into that. But they're putting these things in everything. I mean, I swear, every time you go to buy a kid's Capri Sun or something, you have to look at it because if it says no sugar added, it's probably got Splenda.
And Carrageenan and all this.
Yeah,
I
all
can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't do methanol.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as I do, you hear my stomach go
It
about
starts,
5
you
miles
don't have
away.
that
It goes,
tolerance. Yeah, it has an effect, absolutely.
I think that's
Are you
how
better
sweet
off?
and low.
No, poison.
No, that's horrible.
No, equal horrible.
Are you better off with straight sugar than you are with
Yep.
sugar substitutes?
As much as odd as that sounds, and I'm not telling you to go eat a bunch of sugar, but you're
well,
better
better
off.
off with raw sugar, not
Yeah.
white sugar.
Yeah, you wanna do sugar in the raw and different
I
options
know
like
what
that.
to do,
but
I
you-
just don't do it every time.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
It's hard to do because it's
like
not
one-
available, you know?
Well,
And
yeah.
it costs more.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, sugar and everything, the
But it's
artificial
worth
sweeteners are
it if you
cheap.
really change,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's real food and it stays with you longer.
And your body usually goes, yes, ma'am?
Will you get us up to speed on the sugar thing? I will tell you straight up, I
Okay.
live on Diet Coke.
Okay.
Is there a-
It's stopping,
Is there a fix other than stopping?
yeah.
Stopping slowly.
Well, the
It's like
thing
a
is,
drug.
if I'm not drinking that, I'm
Yeah.
probably going to be into something.
You're gonna
I
be,
mean, I read them.
my mother-in-law was the same way. Okay, she drank a lot of Diet Coke nonstop. She actually started working with us on one of the programs that we do here in the office, and she just finally got tired of it and decided she was gonna do it. She doesn't touch the stuff anymore.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, she got it, and it was one of those things where when she was with us, if she was getting a Diet Coke, she would look at us like if we were gonna be looking at her kind of funny. We let her do her thing, you know, but
I'm more like,
yeah, she's gotten away from it. But yeah, the diet sodas they're toxic. It's horrible, and it's not just metabolically. It attacks the spleen, it attacks the liver, it attacks
Start
the
drinking lemon water.
yeah, lemon
Even got
water,
the stevia.
yeah, just there's all kinds of different options. Yeah, so you want to stay away from the artificial sweeteners. Exercise is critical. That helps with sugar metabolism and so on. Yes, ma'am.
how about this, if I can get really tough,
Uh-huh.
and drink maybe one regular Coke day as opposed to
Essential oil.
my usual ongoing jug,
Right,
Diet Coke,
right.
would that be?
That'd be, I mean,
That
and
wouldn't-
With the lemon oil.
it's not the best option with you having a sugar handling issue, but it's a better option than drinking the diet sodas. Especially if you're just doing one, because then I can wean you off the one easy. So, we'll talk about that though when we get into the clinical aspect of everything, because I'll show you how to get away from these things. Because if you drink a lot of diet soda and you quit cold turkey, you're gonna go through some withdrawals. So I'll show you how to get through that in an easier way. So,
Okay, I
yeah.
do, I live on it.
Yep. Again, exercise is critical. Stress is a horrible effect on the body. The adrenal glands are your stress glands. When your cortisol levels go up, it pulls blood sugar with it. When they go down, it's just it's a roller coaster. And then what happens with sugar and cortisol is when they go up, thyroid function goes down, and then vice versa. So you got this up and down kind of roller coaster effect happening. Okay.
Say that again?
Stress. So.
Last part again?
So when you have stress, it's cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine are released. When those levels go up, blood sugar rises with them, and then when they kind of come back down, when cortisol comes back down, then your blood sugar will come back down with it. But it usually ends up going hypoglycemic. That's when you have that insulin reactor. But your thyroid gland, when your sugar and your cortisol goes up, your thyroid function goes down because they counterbalance each other. So you lose thyroid function, and then you get that hyperthyroid. You just kind of have this vicious roller coaster going down. And the symptoms that come with that are irritability, moodiness, hunger, all these different things that can happen along with it. So, okay, so what am I saying here? All these talk about high levels of glucose. Okay, we've already talked about all that. See, I start talking and we go forever. So the medical solution, of course, is more insulin. And like I said, it's just trying to force it in. But the problem with insulin is that you start getting into inflammation. When you have high insulin, your body gets inflamed. Your body gains weight. Your blood pressure increases. Cardiovascular disease, all these. The hormones, the male and female hormones get out of balance. And then it's toxic to the brain. When you're inflamed and your blood sugar levels are out of normal, the blood-brain barrier becomes permeable. So you start having things that actually get into the blood or the brain that shouldn't be getting there. And inflammation loves the brain. So you can start moving into having brain-based issues with that. Okay?
So they're
Right.
giving us poison.
What's that?
They're giving us poison.
Toxic, yes. Now, I mean, it helps in the short term, which is what they're trying to do. The long term, it breaks down the body. So, yes, ma'am.
Okay, no great one thing, yeast,
Uh-huh.
that's a big bad for the
Yeah.
clothes too, right?
Yeah, yeast feeds on sugar.
Mess
So-
your brain?
Mhm, absolutely, mess it, the whole internal system, yeah. So that's a whole other culprit.
Yeah.
So all of these things have effects on your blood sugar, and we're gonna get into the different organs and everything as we go through this. But the way that you have to determine what's going on is you have to do that testing. I talked about the functional medicine, the functional knowledge, or nutrition, is you have to do those lab tests to figure out where the breakdowns are happening so you can support the right areas. Okay, now when you look at labs, okay, there are lab values that are lab normals that are established by, the different lab companies. And what you have to do is you take these lab normals, and then they have, I'll give you an example. And I always use TSH for this. I know you guys aren't real familiar with that, but we're gonna use this level. So in the labs, you have like a 0.4 to say a 4.5 would be their normal, okay? What we look at in functional medicine is we look for optimal. We don't really care about normal, we're under optimal. So we're looking for 1.8 to 3.0. So we do that with blood sugar, we do it with HA1C, we do it with all the different levels. We're looking for those optimal numbers. So if you're outside of this, medically you're fine, but optimally you're not functioning right, okay? So you guys go to the doctor and they say all of your labs are looking great, everything is normal. You bring those same labs into me and we're gonna analyze them using these optimal levels, and we'll find little malfunctions that are happening that you wouldn't pick up on if you're using just lab normals, okay? And the key to that is you can catch things early. It's easier to heal things when they've just started versus when they've gone too far. So, okay? All right. Web of physiological dysfunction. Okay, so the first form I want y'all to look at is the one that has all the yeses and nos on it. All right, and if you had a chance to fill that out, I want you to count how many yeses you circled, and then write that number on the bottom of your page. That's gonna be just it's the one with the yeses and nos. You've got the full packet, so you gotta kind of search a little bit. These guys only have just a couple pages.
Okay, I'm coming. Okay, that's towards the rear, I think.
Just
Is
a
that
yes, it's
per
not the
page
right
or-
or left.
Just the yeses and nos on that one page. Okay, so after you counted that and put that number down, what I'm gonna have you do is you have a clear piece of paper? Okay. I want you to write a circle, and I want you to write the main symptom that you have that's your problem, whether it's, weight loss or fatigue, or, if you just wanna call it diabetes or, thyroid, whatever it is, just put that in this circle. So I'm gonna put blood sugar.
Yeses and those, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So count how many yeses you circled.
Yeses.
Yep, just the yeses.
Okay.
All right, so everybody's got their numbers? Okay. So on this form, a normal finding, we allow for 5 yeses. Anything less than 5 yeses. So does anybody have more than 5 yeses circled? Okay. All right, so what that tells me is that you have a brain-based issue. Okay? So off of your little circle with your symptom, you're gonna draw a line and you're gonna write brain. Okay?
That's only yeses.
That's all the yeses, yes ma'am. So what that says is that even if you have just a diagnosis of diabetes, it's moved into affecting the neurological system, okay? So for you, those of you guys that have more than that 5, when I do your neurological evaluation, chances are probably that you're not gonna be able to touch your finger to your nose. You probably won't be able to stand up with your eyes closed without swaying. You may not be able to feel how many fingers I'm touching your arms with. You may not be able to feel your feet. There's a lot of things that you don't know that are going on that we'll find in this exam that will show where the neurological malfunction is, okay? One of the things we look at, frontal lobe is the area of the brain that's for judgment, for planning, for social skills. You know how little kids will walk up to you and they'll say, hey, I don't like your shirt, or I really don't like your shoes, or you're ugly, or whatever. Well, it's because, it's because they, number one, haven't been socially trained right, but also, even with the social training, they don't have the editing ability because the frontal lobe does not fully mature until 25 years old. So teenagers, the reason they're so dangerous is they have all these crazy hormones and they don't have the judgment and the planning and everything. I've got 2 teenagers at home and it's crazy. One of them's learning to drive, and I hate that I know this because it freaks me out that she's on the road.
It's not fun.
Yeah, exactly. So also things like, this also affects as we get older, or as we start having blood sugar issues or metabolic issues, because we'll start losing these functions. So if you find yourself having a hard time, planning out, like if you're trying to get somewhere and you have 3 stops to make, and you're trying to plan out how you're gonna get there on time and juggle all the stops, and you can't figure out the sequence of timing or anything, if you're constantly late to places, if you notice some older people may start losing their social skills, they might start getting a little more gruff and a little more irritable and agitated than they used to be, and a lot of that can be the loss of frontal lobe function. Okay, so frontal lobe is pretty important in decision making. If you find yourself not able to decide things, like you want to have McDonald's or Burger King for dinner. First of all, never or neither, but you can't decide. It's like you decide, because you just don't have the ability to decide things. All right, parietal lobe. Parietal lobe sits in this area of the brain. Couple things that it does. Number one is I close my eyes, I put my hand right here. I know my hand is right here because my parietal lobe on this side is telling me where it is, okay? Sometimes some of you guys will have your hand here and I'll do a little test on you and you're actually perceiving as being here, or we'll do like a pass point, you can't get to where you are. So parietal lobe is that proprioception. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you try to go to the bathroom and it's dark and you stumble and have a hard time getting your balance, okay, that's a parietal lobe issue because you're taking away the function of the eyes to keep your balance, so your parietal lobe doesn't know where it is in space and time. Okay. The other thing about the parietal lobe is if I take a hammer and I drop it on my toe, it's supposed to hurt. If you're sitting here in these chairs, they might be a little uncomfortable, but you shouldn't have pain shooting down the legs, your feet shouldn't be hurting, your neck shouldn't be hurting. I see all kinds of body mechanics running here doing these things. It's like, I can tell exactly what's going on with people.
Could that cause you to have pain or a lot of more pain on one side of the body than the other?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things too, when I look at when we're doing your history.
I have always wondered why. My right side
Right
always
side,
had more pain
that's
than
left
the
brain.
left side.
That's left brain. Left brain, right cerebellum is probably shot. When we
So
do your
there's
neuro.
something wrong with me if you're,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I figured
anytime-
there's something wrong there.
If you
but-
have unilateral sensations that affect the whole body, then that's going to be usually a brain-based issue. If you have just an arm or something, it could be a nerve impingement, it could be something along those lines. But if it's the entire one side of a body, it's usually opposite side brain. So yeah, if you have, if you pinch yourself on the arm, you feel that pinching here, but the only reason you feel that pinching here is because your parietal lobe is telling you that it's there. So sometimes you can have that pinching sensation if it's not there, and you have that burning, stabbing sensation, even though there's no physical cause whatsoever, and that could be a hyperactive parietal lobe. So, all right, and then the temporal lobe. All right, who's ever walked into Walmart and walked out, can't find their car? Yeah, okay. That's the temporal lobe. That could also be just distraction, but if it happens a lot,
Distraction.
it could be temporal lobe. Yeah, walk into a room, can't find, don't know what you went in there for, can't find your keys, can't find words, or you switch words up, or things along those lines. That could be temporal lobe. So these are the main lobes we look at. We also look at like occipital lobe. You're looking at the hippocampus, which is deep. The hippocampus is a deep part of the temporal lobe, and that's where it's kind of like the only thing the hippocampus is really interested in is like food and sex and procreation. It's like it's just a survival mechanism. It's our primitive brain, and it takes those memories and it puts them through what's called the prefrontal cortex for our prefrontal cortex to edit and let us know what is the right decision and so on. So people that have frontal lobe damage, a lot of times they don't edit those things. So if a young person gets in a car accident or something, they might become very sexually promiscuous, or they might become angry, or something like that, because they don't have that editing factor to those things. So the brain's fascinating. Okay, so what we do with neurological issues with functional neurology that I talked about, we use the theory of fuel and activation. Fuel comes in the form of fixing your blood sugar, fixing the metabolic process, because the brain actually consumes 30% of all the energy created in the body. It only takes up about 5% of our body weight, but it consumes the majority of our fuel. So when you tell somebody it wears you out to think, you're not lying. It does. It is an exhausting process. So we have to fuel the brain. So we fuel the brain with fixing the metabolic process, and we use oxygen. So I don't know if you guys saw anybody up there, but they didn't have the oxygen cannulas on doing exercises. So they were getting their fuel, and then we have them doing very specific exercises to stimulate and activate the parts of the brain that are on weak. And by doing that, you can use what's called neuroplasticity, and you can actually recover brain function. It's a phenomenal practice. Actually, I love that part of the practice. So, okay, so now we're going to go into your metabolic questionnaires. Those are the ones that have all the 1s, 2s, and 3s. For you, you're going to look for, I'm going to help you find it since you have so much paperwork. Yeah, this would be these 2 pages right here. Okay?
Thank you much.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to go through these kind of quick, but I just want you guys to help discover, what's going on with you. So category 1, if you have any 1s, 2s, or 3s circled in there, you're going to draw a line on your little web, and you're going to write the word colon.
Say that again?
So if you circled any 1s, 2s, or 3s in category 1, then you're going to write the word colon, because category 1, those are symptoms related to colon function. Okay? Category 2 and 3, those are both related to stomach. So if you have any 1s, 2s, or 3s circled in either category 2 or 3, you're going to write the word stomach. Now, a brief word on this. These symptoms that they're talking about in here, a lot of those are related to hydrochloric acid production in the stomach. And what happens is, as we age and as we lose metabolic function, our stomach stops producing as much hydrochloric acid. So when we eat food, the food goes into our stomach and it sits there because it doesn't break down as quick. So when it sits there, it putrefies. When it putrefies and it mixes up with your whatever stomach acid you do have, you get reflux.
Right.
Okay? So then what do you do when you get reflux? Yeah, you take Tums or Rolaids, Nexium. Yeah, you take all these proton pump inhibitors, and what they're doing is further lowering your hydrochloric acid. So they're propagating the problem. They make you feel better, but they're making the problem worse.
Oh,
The
wow.
treatment that actually heals it is stimulating your body to make more hydrochloric acid. In most cases, now if you're clinically proven to have excess hydrochloric acid, then my understanding is you're supposed to take those proton pump inhibitors, titrate them to a level that gets you to a normal hydrochloric acid level in the stomach, let the stomach heal, and then you titrate yourself off of them. Okay? I've never seen a patient that's gone onto those and taken off of them. Okay, usually it's a long-term thing. And when you do that, you start decreasing that stomach acid, decreasing that proton pump activity, and then you start decreasing the digestive aspect of things. So then you have foods that are getting into the system that are not broken down, and they're foreign to the body. Okay? The other thing that happens with that is when the stomach makes this hydrochloric acid, combines with the food, and it comes out into the small intestines. When it comes out, the gallbladder stores bile. And so when that hydrochloric acid and that food comes out, that stimulates the gallbladder to squeeze and put that bile in there to break down fatty foods. So if your hydrochloric acid content isn't in there right, it doesn't stimulate that gallbladder production to get that bile out of there. You end up with what they call cholestasis, I think is the word they put. Basically, you get a static gallbladder, which is one of the things that can lead to gallstones. Okay, so stomach acid is critical. All right, category 4, small intestines. All right, so if you have any 1s, 2s, or 3s in category 4, you're going to write small intestines. And this is where you really have the effect of those proteins and the foods getting into the digestive tract that are not broken down, because now you have proteins that are in there that are not somewhat familiar to the body, and if those leak out of that small intestine, like through leaky gut syndrome or hyperpermeability, if they leak into the blood supply, your body starts making antibodies against it. Those antibodies, if it's a constant supply, those antibodies can develop into antibodies against the body. So you have the rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, the Hashimoto's, all these different autoimmune conditions. Okay, so that's one of the ways that can happen. Yeah. So if you take these first 4 and you group them all together, that's what we call the gut. So that sits right there. Okay, so not only do we have normal digestive function, the gut is also where about 90% of your serotonin is made. Serotonin is our feel-good neurotransmitter. People that are depressed are said to be serotonin deficient. Most depression medications are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So serotonin is critical to how we feel. Okay, 90% of that is made in the gut. So if you have a gut-based issue, you don't have normal serotonin. 60 to 70% of your immune system happens in the gut because of the gut flora and bacterial content. Most people don't have normal bacterial, especially in yeast infections and things like that. So the gut is critical. Okay.
Question,
Yes, ma'am.
would the Diet Coke aggravate all of that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It decreases immune function. It gets the. Yeah,
Okay, I gotcha.
that's a whole conversation. Okay, liver and gallbladder, category 5. If you have 1s, 2s, or 3s in there, you're going to write the word liver. Now, if you don't have your gallbladder, or if you know somebody who does not have their gallbladder, they have to be on bile salts. Okay? But basically, remember, the gallbladder stores bile and then squeezes it into the food. If you don't have that gallbladder for storage, then you don't get that bile influx. So when you have your food coming through, you're not going to digest your fatty component of the food right. So you become fat-soluble vitamin deficient.
What did you say it should be taken?
Bile salts.
Bile
Bile salts, yeah. We have one here, it's called Colacol. Works really well, it's not very expensive, and it'll change your life if you don't have a gallbladder. But it's something you gotta take for the rest of your life, because you've gotta supplement that bile salt in there.
So why are you not told this whenever you have your gallbladder removed?
Right.
Good question.
My mom didn't get that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I had my mom went to I probably shouldn't say this, is in the video, but my mom she was having a little bit of a cough that she had developed. And so she went to a gastroenterologist, they did a scope, and they determined that she was having a little bit of reflux. So I told her, I was like, okay, come see me, I'll get you on the supplements, we'll get this taken care of. So okay, I'll come in. Well, she went to get a study done so they could see how bad the reflux was, see what her digestive tract was doing. And she was in there with the radiologist, and the radiologist, she was taking the stuff, and he was looking at the film, and he goes, okay, yeah. He goes, you definitely want to get on that Nexium or Prilosec or whatever it was they recommended. You definitely want to get on that. We can see some damage, in the esophagus. She goes, well, my son doesn't want me taking that. He's a chiropractor. He doesn't want me taking it because he doesn't want me messing up my hydrochloric acid or something. And he looked at her and he said, man, or he goes, Miss Price, he goes, you don't need hydrochloric acid. He said, we needed hydrochloric acid back when we were eating food that had dirt and hair on it. He said, but our food's so processed now, we don't have to have normal hydrochloric acid. It's fine, go ahead and take it. And I was like, she told me on the phone, I'm like, he said, what? And she goes, oh, and then he laughed because he was just kidding. And I was like, no. So in answer to your question, I don't know. I think it's just the training. We look at things from a natural, holistic perspective. They look at things from a medical perspective. If you got a broken bone, you got something like that, don't come to me, go to see them, because they're masters of that. But when it comes to chronic conditions, a lot of times, it doesn't work too well.
I can't recall just what, but there was something else that I've heard kind of on the side that really warned against Nexium and those
Yeah,
sorts of
they
things.
cause osteoporosis, they cause all kinds of different
That's it,
issues.
most of
Yeah, absolutely, because you don't get that normal
Great thought.
vocabulary. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I heard it though.
Yeah, you did. It was in there. It was in the file. Okay, so now we've got liver and we've got gut-based issues. Okay, now watch this. This is critical. This is 80% of the conversion of T4 to T3. Okay, so if you have a liver issue and if you have a gut-based issue, that conversion factor of all the metabolic processes in your body is not functioning at optimal levels because you're not getting that 80% conversion.
Would that be perpetual diarrhea sports?
That's gonna be the gut-based issue. That can be from dysbiosis. There's a lot of things that can cause that. But yeah, that'll.
With those two both affect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am?
What it costs to come see you?
$400 million.
Yeah,
yeah. So now the real price will seem a lot better. Yeah. Y'all can all pitch in and we'll just do a group.
I already told them we can't afford it.
Yeah, well, I'll get into a little bit of that in a little bit. So, okay, so category 6 and 7. So does anybody have category 6, 1, 2, and 3s in category 6? Yeah, so on your form, did y'all circle any of those? 1, 2, and 3s.
And 1, 3, and 2, 1.
So you got some in there. Anybody else have some in there?
So what?
So circle any 1s, 2s, or 3s in category 6.
So
The re-
whenever you say a 1, 2, or 3, it's bad news.
Right, that just means that you have those symptoms. So basically,
Category 6?
category 6 is hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Category 7 is the insulin resistance or the diabetes or things like that. If you have it in both, then you're what we call an insulin reactor. Okay? And what happens is that means that you eat foods that convert into carbohydrate, your blood sugar goes too high, your body kicks in, overcompensates, whatever it has to do to get the blood sugar down, and when it finally gets it down, it goes too low. So you're constantly chasing normal. And when that happens, when your blood sugar is not normal, your body cannot heal. If you've got a gut and a liver-based issue and you go out and do gut and stomach and liver cleanses and all this stuff all day long, but your blood sugar is not normal, you will never heal.
So I really am a walking time
So
bomb.
Yeah.
if that just happens every blue moon, that still would be like a sign that it's gonna.
It depends. I mean, if it's just every once in a while, if it's not a major thing, then it could just be liver toxicity at that time or something along those lines. But if it's something that you experience on a somewhat regular basis, you got that reactivity. Now, the other interesting thing is category 8 and 9, those are the adrenal glands. Okay. You're walking in the woods, you see a bear, the bear charges you, and your pupils dilate, your hair stands up, the blood rushes from your digestive system, goes into the muscles, and you get ready to fight or run from that bear. Okay? Yeah, that's a fight or flight.
Just have to sign what one.
Yeah, you just outrun the person.
I did that in Yellowstone.
Yeah, right, just be faster than the person next to you.
He's nerdier than me. Yeah, he's big time.
So that's your stress response, okay? Now, if you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic and it makes you mad, it's the same stress response. If you have a job that stresses you out, it's the same stress response. If you have kids that stress you out, money stresses you out, whatever the stress is, it's the same stress response. And what happens is when your adrenals, that's what that says, is adrenals. When your adrenal glands become in a chronic stress situation, they go up, and then your cortisol, your epinephrine, your norepinephrine, all those levels go up.
Is it true that makes your tummy just get
Cortisol can,
Bigger
yeah.
and bigger,
Yeah.
yeah.
It does, but then it doesn't, because it goes with estrogen and some other things too. But cortisol, you actually want normal cortisol. If it's too high or too low, it wreaks havoc on your body.
I'm tired of being around you.
So cortisol goes up with that adrenal function. Now, if you keep that stress too long, the adrenal glands are still trying to keep up with it. They're still pumping 100%. So it's like you take a dumbbell and you start lifting. You know, your first 10, 15, you're doing good. After that, you're given 100% function, but you're not quite lifting that dumbbell. So same thing happens here. The adrenal glands are given 100% function, but they're wearing out, so your cortisol levels start to drop. All right? So when they start dropping, you start having symptoms in category 8. If you have symptoms in both category 9 and category 8, that tells me that you're not only under chronic stress, but you've been under chronic stress long enough that you're getting into adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue is a horrible, horrible situation because your body absolutely cannot heal and cannot handle the stress of trying to heal and trying to exercise and trying to do the things you need to do, because when you do these things, they are a stress on the body. They're a good stress, but they're a stress on the body. So the adrenal glands have to be healed. Adrenals and blood sugar go together. With those two, they're intertwined with each other, and you've got to get both of those systems functioning right. The other thing is, the liver makes cholesterol. Cholesterol converts into a substance called pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is what we call a rate-limiting step in the body. It only makes so much of it. Pregnenolone is then converted into progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, and cortisol. Okay? So that's a balanced hormonal system. If this cortisol is low because of adrenal fatigue, the body will start siphoning that pregnenolone resources to try to get that cortisol up, and it'll throw off your estrogen, your testosterone, and your progesterone. So most hormone imbalances are actually adrenal imbalances. Okay? So taking these the bioidentical hormones and things like that, short term they're okay. Long term, I think that's going to be the next Premarin, where they're going to come back and say, "Sorry, dude, probably cancer recaused." So
Wow.
that's, yeah, isn't it?
Okay, my question, testosterone pellets,
Uh-huh.
good, bad, or different?
They're okay short term while you're trying to get the system balanced.
What those stand?
I wouldn't do them at all. Honestly, I wouldn't take them at all. But if there's a situation where you need them, if you're having like a lot of issues, like hot flashes, or different symptoms that you really want to get relief from, yeah. So you want to that testosterone gives you that short term relief, but you don't want to stick with
We
it
are
for
the
too
only
long.
ones that are favored.
So, okay, so and the other thing about the hormone imbalance. So give you an example of that. I had a patient that came in. She was with me about a year ago, and she was blood sugar and adrenal is all we were treating with her. And treated her. She did really well. She was with me for about 6 months. About 3 months after she stopped treatment, she emailed me and said, "Hey, Dr. Price, I'm pregnant." I'm like, "That is awesome. That's great news." She goes, "No, you don't understand." She goes, "My husband and I had spent a ton of money on fertilization therapy. We've done a bunch of this stuff. We've done all these different things and could not get pregnant. We were told we couldn't get pregnant." And she goes, "Now I'm pregnant." I'm like, "That is great." And all we had done was address adrenals and blood sugar. And when that happened, everything kind of healed upstream.
Wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah. so disclaimer,
Would be
if
a
you start
miracle.
care, be careful. We do have a lot of accidental kids. So sometimes, most of the time it's good, but sometimes
Both of mine
it's not. So be prepared.
Sweat.
Category 10 and category 11, that's your thyroid gland. Category 10 is low thyroid, category 11 is high thyroid. So if you circled 1, 2s, and 3s, you're going to write thyroid.
And this is number.
Yeah, you're on the back page over
I have
here.
a question,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I think that I know the answer, but if you took a lot of cortisone for a medical problem,
Uh-huh.
which they never really diagnosed, but I had a major thing wrong with my blood.
Okay. Okay.
It was like my immune system was eating my blood platelets. It gave me gobs of prednisone. I mean,
Okay.
just
Yep.
lots of it.
Yep.
And I think it burned my
Adrenals.
adrenal glands because
Yeah.
I was starting to get the puffy face, the
The symptoms of the additives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been taking support for it, and it's a lot better, and
Yeah.
I lost some weight, but I was also taking thyroid.
Mhm.
Then my doctor took me off thyroid
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of my heart.
Yeah.
But I think that was caused from the hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. You just start
And just,
losing
you know,
all this
and I've
function.
just been trying to correct everything, and lately
Yeah.
the best thing I've done is exercise
Mhm.
and massage.
Yep, yeah, that's stress-free. We've had several Addison's
And
patients that have come in that their adrenals were shot because of steroid use or for whatever reason. and they do well. Now, it's, you know, it depends on the person, how committed they are, things along those lines, but you can get some significant improvement in there, absolutely. So, yeah, and just because the adrenals are burnt out, the approach that we take, we don't try to stimulate the adrenals, we try to heal them. And that's the thing we do with all the systems in the body, we support normal function. And,
This last one, adrenal.
adrenal?
Yeah, for category 10.
That's thyroid.
9.
9 is adrenal, yeah. Yeah.
9 is adrenal.
Yeah, 8 and 9 are adrenal. Those are both adrenal, yeah.
What do you prescribe normally for thyroid? Do you give thyroid medication?
I don't do medication. That's not in our scope of practice. I don't even advise you on your current medication. The way that we work with medication is we support normal body function. We use whole food supplements to support healing in the body. When the body becomes more efficient, then your medicine actually becomes more effective. So you'll start having symptoms like if you're on blood pressure meds, you'll start having low blood pressure issues. If you're on thyroid medication, you'll start having hyperthyroid symptoms. So I'll give you an example. I had a lady, she was with me for about 2.5 months. She came in, this was about 3 weeks ago. She came in and her heart rate was at 32 beats per minute. She's like, I don't feel good, I don't know what's going on. And we're looking at it, I was like, oh, this is crazy, you know. So I sent her immediately to her doctor. She was on some kind of a heart, it was a heart palpitation issue. She was on heart medication, she was on thyroid medication, she was on some other medication, and they kept taking her off of them, trying to get it to normalize. They had taken her off of all the medications, and after about 2 weeks, everything normalized. So in about 2.5 months, she's off of all the medications. I didn't do that. I mean, I helped her body get into the healing aspect, but once those things start happening, we know what signs to look for, then we send you to the doctor, and they modify your doses. And then hopefully get you off of them as the goal.
That's
But
what I'm
can't
trying to
do
get
that.
off of those that they gave me for one heart problem. I mean,
Yeah.
I went to the hospital with, my pulse was like 200 and it was,
Yeah.
AFib.
Yeah.
I never have had it
think
again.
There are chiropractors that are looking for prescription rights, and I understand why, but personally, I don't want them because I'm very cautious with supplements that I give, and these are just foods. I couldn't imagine giving a medication. I'd just be too afraid to hurt somebody with it. So, all right, I'm gonna get here, so we're gonna be here all day. I'm gonna get in
I don't
trouble.
mean to hold you up.
Okay, category 12 and 13. That's your pituitary gland. Your pituitary gland sits right here, and it's the master control gland of the endocrine system. So it controls the signal to the thyroid, it controls the signal down here to the adrenal glands, and also controls the signal to the male and the female sex organs. So hormonal production, hypothalamus sends a signal to the pituitary, and pituitary distributes. All right, so if you have issues there, then we've got to support that because that can affect all the endocrine system.
And you're saying 10 or 11?
That was 11 and I was 12 and 13. I'm sorry.
12 and 13 are.
Pituitary. Yeah.
My aunt had some major problem with that.
Yep. Category 14 and 15, if you are a female and you figured out or filled out category 14 and 15, you have a brain-based issue. Look at that. Oh, y'all don't even get it because that's the male hormones. Yeah. Okay, bad joke. Note to self, don't do that one again. Category 16 and 17, those are female hormones, and we already talked about how the adrenal glands affect that. So, okay. So we talked about testing. What kind of tests should be run? All right. Whether you're looking at diabetes, you're looking at hypoglycemia, thyroid issues, whatever issue you're looking at, if you come into our office, we want to run a full blood panel on you because what we want to do is we want to run a CBC with differential. That's going to show us how your immune system's functioning. It's going to show us if there are any latent infections or parasitic or allergic interventions going on. It's going to tell us if you have any anemias, if you have any problems processing vitamin B12, a lot of information with that. Then we get into a complete metabolic panel. It's going to tell us how your body's handling the blood sugar. It's going to tell us about liver, kidneys, adrenals, all these different functions metabolically. We do a lipid panel. I look at your lipid panel not because I care about how high your cholesterol is. Now, if it's at 280 or 290, 300, something like that, I'm going to start getting worried. If it's 250, it's fine. We'll get it down. It's not something to freak out about. Okay, I know that they want to get you on the Lipitor and everything, but we'll get that down. But I look at it because it tells me how you're handling blood sugar. If cholesterol is elevated, if your triglycerides are elevated, if your HDLs are actually too high, that tells me you have autoimmune issues. There are a lot of different things that we can read from your lipid panel. We run a thyroid panel on everybody because the thyroid is so important in all the systems. Even if you don't have a thyroid issue, we still check it. And then we also look at B12, folate, iron panel, all these different things because we need to see if we have anemias or anything going on. Okay. We do adrenal and hormone salivary testing. This tells us the hormone levels. It tells us what our cortisol levels are. It tells us our pattern of what's going on, so we can see if the pituitary is working correctly. Leaky gut testing, we do that for that leaky gut syndrome. We can actually see if there are proteins in the blood that shouldn't be there. And if there are, then we can work on it, and then we can post-test and see if it's still there. So, food sensitivity, this is huge. If you have a gut-based issue, we have to look at food sensitivity testing because, I'll give you an example. There are 24 foods that are cross-reactive in the body that are similar to gluten. So I've got, a relative of mine who was diagnosed with celiac disease, a young child. Celiac disease is where you are so sensitive to gluten that you start losing intestinal tissue because of that. So his parents put him on a gluten-free diet. He came and spent a summer with us. So I expected when he came in, that he had to eat this special diet and everything. So I thought he was going to be eating pretty healthy. Well, actually, when they came home, they brought him a bunch of gluten-free food with them. And there's things like gluten-free chips, gluten-free, macaroni and cheese, gluten-free, all these things that were, not ideal. And so there are 24 cross-reactive foods that are in a lot of gluten-free foods that still react in the body very similarly. So we test for those foods, and we test them in a way. We're not looking for what's called an IgE response, which is that quick allergic response. We're looking at IgG and IgA, which are your long-term responses. So let's say you eat corn today, you're sensitive to corn. 4 days later, you start itching a little bit, and you have some gas and bloating, and you're like, what the heck is this? You're thinking it's something you ate that morning, but it's actually the corn that you ate 3 or 4 days ago. So we can do testing to see what's going on with that. And now we also do hair testing and all this other stuff as well. So whatever testing we need to do, stool testing, nutrient testing, there's all these different tests that we can do, but those are the basic tests that we do on most patients. Okay, so I'm not reviewing anything. I think I've talked about all that. So basically, so what's the next step? So if you on your page look anything like this, you got this web of physiological dysfunction, then taking a simple medication to try to fix it is not going to work. You got to get in there and support all the systems. So what we do, we have a 2-visit process with our patients. So this is that question you asked, and I'm going to get into that for you. The first visit, we come in, and she's got an example here. We give you this huge packet of all these questions, all the history. I have you write out your history for me. And the reason I do that is because, number one, it lets you guys remember things as you're writing. It's going to jog your memory, and you can put it in. Number two, I'm a visual learner. So I read it, and I circle it, and I write it. Also, I don't read your history on the first visit because when I do your neurological evaluation, I don't want to walk in with preconceived notions. So I want to have it written so I can do this and then go home and study it. Okay, which my wife loves to watch me do. It's like, God, you studying again? So on the first visit, we collect your packet from you with all your questionnaires on it. We do a complete neurological evaluation to see how the brain's functioning, testing all those loads that we talked about, and just seeing how your nervous system is doing. We review any existing labs that you have from the last 90 days. I'm going to take those labs, I'm going to review them, and I'm going to review them using functional lab values to see what I can find. We can take all those questionnaires from you. It says here your spouse needs to be there for the first visit. They don't have to be there for the first one. Okay? So this first visit, we do all this, then we part ways. I take all that, and I study it, and I look at it, and I figure out what's going on with you. So when we get together on the second visit, I can tell you, hey, yes, I think I can help you. I can accept your case. No, I don't think I can help you. This is what I think you should do. Either way, I'm going to go through everything that I found. So in these 2 visits, the minimum that you're going to get is you're going to learn more about your body than you've ever known. Okay? If I can accept your case, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what the recommended treatment plan is going to be. We're going to go over financial costs. I'll get it down to the penny for you so you know exactly what it's going to cost you. We go over the treatment plan so you know time-wise what's going on, how many treatments I'm anticipating we're going to need to do. We're going to go through all that. I do want your spouse to be here on the second visit, a spouse or significant other, if you're a mom, daughter, whatever it is, whatever the situation is. And the reason I want them there is because, number one, you're going to be making lifestyle changes. They need to know what's going on so they can support you in it. Husbands and wives especially, husbands are pretty cynical. So we want them to know what's going on so they know why you're doing what you're doing, so they can be supported. Also, we need to know the time commitment. They need to be there with you to help you make sure you can commit the time. Financially, they need to be there with you for that too, just to make sure financial decisions. So they just need to be there with you for the whole process because it's a team approach to what we're doing. And the worst thing that can happen is we get together here and I spend about 30, 45 minutes doing an exam, and then in between visits I spend about 30, 45 minutes working up the case, and we spend about 30, 45 minutes going over the case, and the worst thing that can happen is we get to the end of it and you say, I gotta go home and talk to somebody about it. I'll pull my hair out. Because you will never remember everything that I just said to you, and you'll never be able to explain it to them. So that's why I want them there on the visit. Okay, so the first 2 visits are $125, okay, total for both visits. Now, what I do for people that come to the workshop, or if you can't make a workshop, I have you watch a DVD online. If you guys do that, I knock it down to $65, okay, and that's for both visits. The reason I do that is because there are about 7, 8 of you in here. Y'all just saved me about 7 hours of talking in the office, because now you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay, so it just really, it helps me out, it gives you guys a good background, so I pay you guys for your time. So it's $65 for those first 2 visits, okay? Some things to think about. Number 1, you've gotta be willing to make lifestyle changes, okay? I love food. I'm a big guy, I eat. I'm not gonna ask you guys to eat nuts and seeds and berries for the rest of your life. I'm not gonna do it. But we do have to make the changes we have to make to get you where we need to go, okay? And I wouldn't ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do, so I've done everything I asked you guys to do. I had a patient that sat up on the table, I was getting ready to do her report of findings on her second visit. She goes, okay, I'm excited, I'm ready. She goes, but I gotta let you know, I really don't want to change how I eat. I hate exercise, I don't take supplements, and I'm not willing to get rest, I just like how I live. I'm like, okay.
Why'd you come?
Yeah, exactly, we're done. So that was
my
easy.
husband.
Yeah. You have to take accountability for your health. Once you realize that you're responsible for the outcome, we talked about, you change today's actions and you get a different outcome in the future. Once you realize that, it's kind of empowering. If you blame Obama or Trump or your mom or your dad or McDonald's, or you put the blame out on somebody else, you have no control over that. But once you realize that you have the control, it's really kind of empowering. So you've got to take that accountability for your health. And when I'm working with you, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to throw you life preservers. I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to see you, maybe 1-2 hours a week. I'm not going to be with you the other, 100 and whatever many hours there are. So you've got to take responsibility and do those things yourself. Now, as far as cost of care is concerned, everybody's concerned about does insurance cover it, so on and so forth. First of all, we do our best, and we do pretty well. About 96% of patients that come in can afford care, okay? We work with insurance the best we can. They don't cover everything we do. There is out-of-pocket expense, so you have to be aware of that. Usually, if you estimate, somewhere about $200 to $400 a month, you should be okay. How many months that is, it just depends on what we do as far as treatment's concerned. I've had patients complete treatment for $300. I've had patients that have been with me and their case has gone upwards of $10,000. So I really don't know what your case is going to be until we evaluate it, okay? I also don't know if your insurance covers it until we evaluate it. So when you guys come in on that first visit, we're going to get all of your insurance information. When we come in on a second visit, when I go through that financial, I'm going to tell you exactly what your insurance covers, exactly how much your out-of-pocket will be, and so on and so forth. My job is to make the best treatment plan recommendation based on what I find. Our job together is to figure out what we can do together to make it work. So if we have to reduce treatment a little bit to make it affordable, we can do that. Okay, so, and I kind of dig that in a little bit because everybody wants to stay after and ask me, well, do you take this insurance, do you have this insurance? I don't know until we go through those visits, because I don't know what your testing is going to be, what your treatments are going to be, or anything. Anna doesn't know either. She especially doesn't know. So don't ask
Don't
her.
stop
Get up
bugging
there.
her.
Yeah. So, well, you can bug her, but don't ask her about that. Yeah, so you know. So anyway, we do our best to make it affordable. So just to let you guys know that. All right. So if you want to schedule an appointment, when you go up front, she's going to have some cards laid out on that table up there. It's going to have some dates and times of appointments we have available. Take your little half slip of paper, grab the appointment time that you want, put them together, give them to her. She'll collect your $65. She'll put you in the computer and you'll be done. So if everybody signs up, you'll be out of here in like 7 minutes because it's a really quick process. That's why you do it that way. So you'll go up there, you'll pick up the card, pay the $65, and then she's going to give you a binder, which you guys don't have to worry about. You've already got all that. She's going to give you a binder with all the information that you need to fill out to bring into your appointment. Now, in that binder on the first page is instructions for what to do for your first visit. Make sure you read that. It's going to tell you about bringing shorts, bringing a t-shirt, making sure your paperwork's filled out, all the different things. I think it talks about watching a DVD on there. You don't have to watch that because y'all have that in your routine. Okay? All right, that's it.